Hey, Algebra 2, we are not learning anything new this week. We are only reviewing for our test next week. Okay, so I have this little graphic organizer and which will help you kind of keep things in order. We're going to be working through this in class, but I wanted to get you started with it, okay? So the whole thing of this whole unit is solving quadratic equations, finding the value that makes the equation true. We learned lots of different ways: factoring, quadratic formula, which you will not have to have memorized. I have that on the exam for you, or square root method. Okay, so sometimes I just wanted to give you an idea of the steps and how to determine which method to use. Okay? The first thing I would do is put the equation in the form something times ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay? So for this one, I don't have it equal to 0, right? So let's just make this 6x squared plus 39x minus 72 equals 0. Bring that 72 over by subtracting it from each side. We have to have it equal to 0. Okay? Then we take a 6 out. All right, since 6, not 6. Yeah, we take a 3 out, not a 6. We'll figure out what number goes out. Okay, sometimes it's 2, 3, 6, and sometimes nothing factors out. But if there's something that factors out, get that out of there. That's what this D is. Factor that out. If I take 3 out, I get 2x squared plus 13x minus 24. And I still have equals 0. Okay? Now these are my new A, B, and C. A is 2, B is 13, C is negative 24. I'm going to find the discriminant, that b squared minus 4ac, which is under the square root. I'm going to take 13 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 24. 13 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 24. Okay? When I find the discriminant, I see that I get 361. I take the square root of that just to see if it's a perfect square, and I get 19. If the discriminant is a perfect square or 0, that tells me I could factor this if I want. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe I want to use the quadratic formula. That's up to you, okay? But if it can factor, I think we've seen in class that sometimes that can be a little bit easier to deal with getting the answers. Now that I know it can factor because my discriminant was a perfect square, I'm going to look at the 3 is still out here. I'm going to think what multiplies to 2x squared. That would be 2x and x. What multiplies to 24? I don't know, 6 times 4, 8 times 3. I fool around with that until I have to get 13 in the middle. It ends up being 8 times 3 because that gives me 16x minus 3x will give me the 13x in the middle. Okay, so I might not have found that right away. I realize that. We might have played with it for a little bit until we found that. Maybe we tried 6 and 4, 4 and 6, 8 and 3, and then we tried 3 and 8, and we're like, oh, that gives me my 13x in the middle. Now I set each of these equal to 0. 2x minus 3 equals 0. Or x plus 8 equals 0. Add 3 to the other side, divide by 2, I get x equals 1.5. Subtract 8, I get x equals negative 8. Those are the 2 answers to the first one, okay? And then I ask you to just kind of check your answer on using Desmos. Graph this. When I say graph it, guys, just graph, like I showed you here, graph y equals 2x squared plus 13x minus 24. And see where that crosses the x-axis. And you'll find that it crosses the x-axis. I mean, go ahead to Desmos. I want you to please do that. Go to Desmos, graph y equals, I have it right here for you, 2x squared plus 13x minus 24. You'll see that it goes through at negative 3 and at 1.5. I don't think you can see the whole graph, to tell you the truth. I think it goes way down. Okay, but you'll see it cross at -8 and 1.5, which is 3/2. Okay? That will help you. I just want you to see the connections between those. All right? Now, I also have a worksheet, as you see, to accompany this, because the 6x squared, 6x squared plus 39x minus 72 equals 0. We did it already by factoring, okay, and we got those two answers. I did want to show you, you certainly can use the quadratic formula for this. You know, I'm going to have it on the test for you. Opposite b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, square root of all that, all over 2a. If you wanted to just jump right into the quadratic formula, as long as you have it equal to 0, you do have to do that, but you would say, okay, a equals 6, b equals 39, c equals -72. You would take on your calculator b squared, oops, I'm sorry, opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. Okay, it's the opposite of b, -39, plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. I would do that on my calculator. I'm sorry. Let's pull my calculator over here. And I'm telling you guys, this is where everybody messes up. Please be careful on your calculator. Clear. Okay, clear. I do what's under the square root first. I go 39 squared minus 4 times 6 times, what is it, -72? Grab that negative down here. Let's get the discriminant. What's under the square root? We get that. Okay, 3249. I take the square root of that. The square root of 3249, just to see if it's not a perfect square, then I'll leave it there. But if it's perfect square, oh, it is. It's 57. So now I know that I have -39 plus or minus 57 all over 12, right? 2 times 6 is 12. So then I take, what is -39 plus 57? -39 plus 57 is 18. So there's one of my answers, 18 over 12. All right, what's my other answer? I have to take -39 minus 57. Let's see what I get then. -96 over 12. Now, I'm not going to let them like that. I have to simplify that. 18 over 12. Let's see. 18 divided by 12. That's 1.5. -96 divided by 12. That's -8. So my answers are, my final answers, x equals 1.5 or x equals -8. Okay, so what I'm saying is, once I saw that my discriminant was a perfect square, I decided to factor, and I got 1.5 or -8. This person used the quadratic formula. They got 1.5 and -8. Okay, doesn't matter. Somebody that maybe took the 3 out. What was it? 6x squared plus 39x minus 72 equals 0. Maybe somebody saw that, oh, you can take a 3 out. Okay, and they factored it, but then they were still like, or they, took the 3 out, but then now their new things are a equals 2, b equals 13, c equals -24. Maybe they use the quadratic formula with that. Opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Okay, so they took 13 squared. We already did that, but whatever. 13 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 24. They got 361. Took the square root of 361. And you get 19. So now they're going to write negative 13 plus or minus 19 all over, what's 2 times 2? 4. Negative 13 plus 19 is 6. So I have 6 over 4. Negative 13 minus 19 is negative 32. Well, 6 divided by 4 is 1.5. Negative 32 divided by 8, and negative 32 divided by 4 is negative 8. Well, look at that. We got 1.5 or negative 8, no matter how we did it. That's where that worksheet comes in. Even though I'm giving you on the graphic organizer, I'm trying to show you how I feel is best to determine what to do. In the end, it's up to you. Okay? All right, so let's work through this next one. 4x squared minus 20x minus 25, I'm sorry, plus 25, whoops, equals 0. I just moved the 20x over here so it becomes negative. I don't think there's anything I can take out of there. So I'm going to find the discriminant. B squared minus 4 times A times C. That gives me 400 minus 400. Oh, that gave me 0. Well, if I get perfect square or 0, I'm going to try to factor this. I got 0 for the discriminant. That means this is I'm only going to get one answer. Let's see, 2x and 2x. 25 is 5 times 5. That'll give me, what, 10x and 10x? Yeah, that's 20x. So I have 2x minus 5 equals 0. X equals 2.5. If I graph it, I get a parabola that just hits the x-axis once, right at 2.5. Go ahead and graph it. Okay, graph y equals 4x squared minus 20x plus 25. If you graph it, you'll see it just hits one time. Okay? Just taking that time to find the discriminant really does help, guys. Okay? This next one, I would 3x squared plus 5x. What would that be? Plus 6 equals 0. I'm subtracting 1 from the 7. Let's see what b squared minus 4ac is. I get 25 minus, what is that? Minus 72. I get a negative under the square root. I wonder what that graph looks like. Oh, it never is going to equal 0, is it? We used to write no solution. But last week we learned that there are something called complex numbers. So we do have to go on and solve this. Okay, let's use our quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus, what did we say it was? The square root of negative 47. I already did the b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. So this is negative 5 plus or minus I square roots of 47 all over 6. Done. These are my imaginary answers, okay? Like we learned last week, okay? This next one, 2x squared. I'm going to subtract 4x from the 10x and get negative 14x. I'm going to add 18 over here, okay? And then I think I'm going to take a 2 out and make that a little easier. X squared minus 7x plus 9. And see what you do with that. We'll continue with the next video. Okay? Try it yourself for a second, then come back to video 2.